kid, my parents bought the complete set of Hanna-Barbera's The Great Adventure Stories from the Bible on VHS. It was this shoddy, completely politically incorrect cartoon series, and I just loved it. My favourite episode of the series was Samson and Delilah. Now, Samson's a warrior for the Israelites who are in battle with the Philistines. He's undefeatable and possesses superhuman strength, and the Philistines want to know why. So they bribe Delilah, who's Samson's lover, into coaxing his secret out of him. And it turns out that the secret to Samson's strength is his hair, and if it's ever cut, he'll lose his power. So Delilah, being an awesome girlfriend, cuts Samson's hair, he's captured, and he eventually dies. I remember thinking at the time that it was ludicrous that Samson's hair was his strength, because without it, he still looked like the Incredible Hulk. I mean, Samson was so muscled and so strong, and I didn't believe that being bald could make a man weak. And in reality, it doesn't. If you think of some of the world's most powerful and influential people, they're bald men. There's Rupert Murdoch, the Dalai Lama, Jeff Bezos, who's the CEO of Amazon. Conversely, when we think of bald women, they're seen in quite a different light. Natalie Portman has her head shaved in V for Vendetta as a punishment. Angelica Houston pulls a wig off in The Witches and becomes a monster. Marsha Cross pulls a wig off in Melrose Place, revealing that she's psychotic and has brain damage. It happened. And the devil in The Passion of the Christ is played by a bald woman. Occasionally we catch glimpses of triumphant bald women like Scottish reporter Gail Porter and cycling champion Joanna Rosal. But these images are few and far between. Usually when we see bald women depicted in popular culture, they're seen as disadvantaged or weak or undesirable or Satan, or they're not seen at all. Baldness in women is a very private, hidden thing, which is why I've spent most of my life in hiding. I have alopecia areata, which is an autoimmune condition that causes your immune system to mistake your hair follicles as foreign bacteria and destroy them. There's no certain cause, though it's widely regarded as being genetic, and there's no cure. In Australia, around 2% of the population has alopecia areata. That's around 450,000 people, and that's excluding those people experiencing baldness from pattern baldness, chemotherapy, and trichotillomania. Now, there are 3 types of alopecia areata. There's areata, which is bald patches on the scalp, totalis, which is complete loss of all head hair, and universalis, which is complete loss of all body hair. I've had alopecia for a long time. When I was an infant, my mum started noticing bald patches on my scalp, so she took me to the doctor. And the doctor said the patches would go away, and they did. So as a young girl, I was very hair obsessed. It was the one thing I had going for me at a school where I was the token Asian kid. People liked it because it was shiny and it made me look like Toad from Super Mario Brothers. This obsession carried on through to my adolescence when I thought I was pretty cool, but I definitely wasn't. So when my hair started falling out in high school, I didn't know what was happening. First it started thinning, and then it started coming out in clumps. I started wearing a bandana and I got asked a lot of questions about it, mainly to do with lesbianism, religious extremism, and cancer. I got bullied and I found it really difficult to connect with people because they either avoided me or they harassed me until I told them the truth, which was something I wasn't entirely comfortable with myself. One day there was this school beach excursion and I got dumped by this massive wave because I was a really shit swimmer. I got pushed right under the water, my bandana flew off, and this is what everyone saw. Somewhat randomly, my hair started growing back in grade 11. And it grew back long enough for me to look like a Shanghainese prostitute at my school formal. By the end of school, my hair had mostly grown back, and I was pretty happy about this. I went to university, I met someone, I broke up with that person, I got a job, I met someone else, I found my feet. But then this happened. but I was okay with it. I've been partially or completely bald for most of my life, and in many ways I still struggle to cope with this. So I've developed a 3-step survival guide for bald women during times of crises. Step 1, know your worth. Women are objects. They're stared at, they're jeered at, and in some cases they're traded and bought. As a bald woman, your currency as a sexual object becomes null, and in many ways this is confusing. Naomi Wolf says of feminine beauty in The Beauty Myth that the harm of these beauty images is not that they exist, but that they proliferate at the expense of most other images and stories of female heroines, role models, villains, eccentrics, buffoons, visionaries, sex goddesses, and pranksters. Baldness in women is one of these underrepresented images. As a bald woman, you're excluded from the scope of conventional female identity. So instead, you become an object of illness, of imperfection, and in some ways, failure. At worst, you become alien and frightening to others. So what is your worth? Your worth lies in knowing that the idea of being womanly is a sham. Your worth lies in the urgency of developing a sense of humor and close relationships, because those are the 2 things that will ultimately see you through. And your worth lies in knowing that as an object, you subvert and expand the idea of what it means to be a woman. Step 2, embrace baldness. It seems like we as a society have embraced baldness in women in most of its forms. Bald legs, tick. Bald armpits, tick. We're willing to pour hot wax over our genitals, and yet having a bald head is too far. It's logic I don't understand, but have always accepted. When my hair first started falling out, I was desperate to grow it back because I felt ugly. I took vitamins, I tried ointments. At one stage, I was tempted to shade my bald patches in with permanent marker. But when my hair finally did grow back, it wasn't enough. There was always something about my appearance that I felt needed improving. So I tried makeup, I painted my nails, I changed my hair every few months. But the more I tried to prove myself, the more fake I felt. So when my hair started falling out last year, I decided to shave it. And after I did, I felt good. Because for the first time, I realized that being bald didn't define who I was. And I was saving a lot of money on shampoo. Step 3, be visible. As a bald woman, I've had to ask myself a lot of questions, like, why is the devil in the Passion of the Christ being played by a bald woman? Am I the devil? Do guys like bald girls? And will I ever have sex again? For a long time, I had no one to share these concerns with. Alopecia isn't a life-threatening illness. The harm's entirely psychological. There are forums online where girls talk about how scared they are to go outside and how desperately alone they feel. They're scared and terrified and angry at everyone. And these forums provide them a safe environment to speak with empathetic people. I coped in a similar way. I wrote. I started a few blogs where I wrote about alopecia because I was scared of being alone and I was so tired of keeping secrets. And soon I started meeting people who were just like me. Young, bald, Asian, living in Brisbane. Who would have thought? Slowly, I started learning how to talk about alopecia, and slowly I started feeling less alone. I want to close with a story about something that happened to me at a book event one night. I was helping launch a book, and my reading was about having alopecia. And afterwards, a woman approached me and told me how fateful it was that she'd heard me read, because her best friend's daughter had just been diagnosed with alopecia. And it was especially devastating because the girl was so popular and so beautiful and had the world at her feet. And what struck me most about the conversation was that it was assumed that because the girl was bald, she couldn't have these 3 things: likability, opportunity, beauty. There's a high chance my hair may never grow back, and I don't want to spend my life thinking that I'm lesser than someone just because they've had hair. I don't want to be someone who's scared to go outside on a windy day. I don't want to be someone who hides every time her doorbell's rung. I don't want to be someone who spends all night in wiping glue off her face until her skin's red raw because wearing adhesive eyebrows was a bad idea. I don't want to be these things because I have been my entire life. I'm ready for openness. I'm ready for people to be challenged. I'm ready for bald women to feel empowered. Because as a bald woman, I don't want to merely survive. I'd much prefer to live. Thank you.